There's been a buzz on campus these past few weeks. The cottage building on East Main Street has finally gotten a new resident. The Cleveland Bagel Company has filled a spot on campus that was vacated in the fall of 2021. Used to be a Starbucks in there, but now we've got a new breakfast spot to take its place. The building itself is a long-standing landmark off on the corner of East Main and Lincoln. It was first built in 1910, where it housed the Captain Brady's Cafe until the early 2000s. Now, Brady's was around for a pretty long time. There's photos like this one from 1935 that showcase the place as being a hive of activity. It even made the news a few times, like in this news spot from the early 90s.
I am waiting at the counter for the man to pour the coffee.
My point is, the place has big shoes to fill. It was announced in the spring of 2022 that the Cleveland Bagel Company would be opening up a location in the cottage building in the fall of that year. Well, it's now the fall of that year, and I gotta say the place has really adapted into the space after a year of it being vacant. There's plenty of seating, and the balcony area especially feels really cozy. It's really fitting that the whole place feels like a breakfast nook, given the fact that it serves breakfast items. Speaking of which, for drinks, the space offers coffee in any way you could want it. Just look at that steamer, they've got you covered, trust me. Not to mention, there's plenty of bagel flavors to go with that coffee once it's ready. Plain, sea salt, everything, and a few more, like a rosemary sea salt bagel. If a bagel with schmear isn't your thing first thing in the morning, they've got bagel sandwiches too. Your classic bacon, egg, and cheese is ever present, of course, but there's a few funkier options as well, like the pizza bagel, the roast beef and horseradish. I ended up snagging 2 bagels off the menu, a plain bagel with plain schmear, and for something a little more adventurous, I went with the caprese bagel sandwich, which sounded delightful in the moment. It was a bit messy, but definitely worth the effort to eat. It's hard to believe one of the better caprese salads I've ever had was sandwiched between 2 halves of a bagel. It was rich and sweet and tart and everything I could expect. I definitely want to go back for more, if not just to try some of the other sandwiches. I got to talk with Charlotte, the owner, about what people seem to be ordering from there. I'm just one guy, might as well let democracy decide what you should try first.
The breakfast sandwich, the bacon, egg, and cheese, and probably the smoked salmon for breakfast. Definitely those are the most popular. And then I would say more for like the lunch and dinner crowd. Our pizza bagels are pretty awesome. Yeah, and then maybe just like, the turkey apple brie sandwich. Definitely that. Yeah, those are probably our top 4 sandwiches right now.
By the way, the cane cola they have in the fridge is killer. The bottle cap is actually just a twist cap. It just looks like a traditional bottle cap. Trust me, it took me longer than I want to admit to figure that out. As far as the plain bagel goes, I'm shocked at how close this tastes to a genuine New York-style bagel. The outer crust is shatteringly crispy, and the inside is soft, chewy, and yeasty. Just as it should be. I haven't been to New York in a couple of years at this point, but the taste and texture of a good bagel is hard to forget, and this almost nails it. I wanted to ask Charlotte why the bagels were just so damn good.
So we're an expanded version of the Cleveland Bagel Company, right? So they're the ones that hand roll the dough, and they boil the bagels, they prep it for us, and then we just finish baking it here. So I remember asking Dan, who's one of the owners, I said, what makes a Cleveland bagel like a Cleveland bagel? And he said that they just care about what they're making, and they put a lot of love into what they're doing. So I'm not sure if it's a certain ingredient or just the kind of drive and care and love that they have behind it. I know that sounds really corny and cheesy, but I think that's really it. They just really care about making an awesome bagel, and not necessarily about mass producing like other large companies.
Alright, hard to argue with that. A fresh bagel, fresh schmear, fresh coffee. It's a pretty good breakfast in my book. If nothing else, it's nice to see a building with so much history still buzzing with activity over 100 years later. Try poking your head in, as it definitely gets a 2 thumbs up from me.